everyone, and welcome to Sunday. Yesterday I said that we would kind of go over some trip details? Stats? Well, I think it's going to be less stats and more like going over some stuff that we thought about the trip.
Yeah.
But there will be a few stats. I'll start with the big stat. People want to know how far we drove. And my original estimate using Google Maps was, I think, 3,300 miles. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was 3,548 miles. That was how far we drove. And we have that because of the odometer.
Yes.
There's a trip odometer on the cars, and even though we switched cars, I took a picture of the odometer in the Impala, restarted it in the Cruise as soon as we got it, and then calculated it until we parked our car here. 3,548. So that was a long way. I drove the entirety of it. Mal was eager and willing to drive.
Yes, I would have driven.
But okay, first off, I didn't need her to drive any. Like, we got enough sleep the entire trip, and it was never a thing like, oh, I need you to drive now. Like, I felt fine to drive, so I did. But also, there was an element to it where, like, I wanted to say that I drove across the country. Like, I didn't want it to be like, I drove across the country, but Mal drove through New Mexico. Like, and that's really stupid, but that was part of it. There was definitely part of it. Like, there's some sort of, like, stupid badge in my brain that's like, you drove across the country, good job. Which is stupid. But also, I didn't need any help, so I don't feel like bad. It wasn't like there was one point where I was like driving off the road and Mal was like, Steven, you need to drive, you need me to drive, and I'm like, no, I have to get the badge. So it wasn't like that. That didn't happen. But that was certainly an element of it. Anyway, I wanted to quickly kind of go over, like, in our minds through the places we went, and just kind of talk about some stuff that maybe we didn't talk about on the vlog. Or maybe we did, because I don't remember. We shot a lot of vlogs. We drove across the entirety of the country in 12 days, from July 7th to 19th. Very, very late on the 19th, so it was practically the 20th, but we'll call it the 19th. So it took 12 days to cross the U.S. Alex, before we left, was like, you know, you could get home in like 3 days or 4 days. And I'm like,
We could,
I guess. Yeah, but it would be a really terrible trip and we'd hate it. People told me before we started this road trip that we were gluttons for punishment, but that we would hate it. You know, that you would get like 3 days on the road and we'd be like, oh, this is awful. And that never happened. I really, really love to drive, and I really loved the road trip. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How were you as a passenger?
It was fine until about the last day.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, there's also an anticipation, so you're like, all right, I want to get home. I want to see the cats. I want to do this or that.
My own bed, my own shower.
Yes, that definitely. The only time that it was ever a pain was West Texas. West Texas, and part of it was the fact that West Texas is incredibly boring. Part of it was the fact that there was nowhere to stop. Part of it was the fact that it was our longest day. Mm-hmm. So it was like all of those things rolled into one made West Texas, the drive from El Paso to San Antonio, bad. Mm-hmm. But even though I don't know if I can even say bad. It wasn't like bad. It was just
not as good as the rest of it.
Not as good.
Yeah.
Anyway, starting in LA, things I liked about LA. It's very big. There's a lot to do.
The people are nice.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise. There's kind of like a stereotype for people in LA that they're snobby or whatever. And that may be true in some parts of LA, I don't know. But everywhere we went, people were above and beyond nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, people were like crazy nice. They rivaled the Southern hospitality of South Carolina.
What about the Minnesota nice?
I don't know about that. Anyway, people in LA were really nice, which kind of threw me for a loop because, I don't know, I guess I just kind of expected like, what's up, brah, you want a biscuit or something like that, but it wasn't like that at all. There was no surfers selling biscuits, which was my one disappointment with LA. Moving on from LA, there was a lot of desert, obviously, which you guys saw. Nevada, which you guys have been yelling at me, it's pronounced Nevada. Is it really? Like, is it really pronounced Nevada? Or is it one of those things that it's interchangeable and your family grew up saying it Nevada, so you're thinking that it's Nevada? when in actuality there's no like official pronunciation. I'm just trying to talk to the rational people out there, because maybe it is like one of those things. Maybe it's like you can pronounce it either way, but there's the people that say Nevada like have pitchforks against the people that say Nevada. So I apologize. I actually use both of them interchangeably. I really do. It's a shame that in the vlogs I'm only saying it one way, but I usually say it both. But whatever. Anyway, you guys can let me know. Dry heat was the one thing that I experienced in Las Vegas that like I had never experienced before, and it was weird because I live in a place and have grown up in a place where it's like humid all the time.
Incredibly humid.
And it was just something new. It was very, very new and very, very different. And it was weird because like we went outside. We got to the hotel. We went outside, and within 5 minutes, Matt was like, "God, I'm sweating. It's awful." And I was like, I'm not sweating. Then we'd walk around. It's like 30 minutes outside, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sweaty. It's terrible." And I'm like, "Not sweating. I don't sweat in dry heat," which was really cool. It was like 95 degrees or higher, and Mao was like complaining about all the heat, and I didn't sweat at all, and I just thought it felt really awesome. I was like, "This is cool." I mean, not cool. Obviously, it was very, very, very hot, but it was interesting because it's something you can't really describe. Like,
if you lived your life with one, the other is just so different.
Yeah, you can't fathom it. And I'm sure that people that, grow up in Nevada, who come and vacation in Myrtle Beach when it's 100% humidity are like,
I'm so sticky.
I'm sticky and I feel like I'm swimming as I walk. But I don't know. It's just something I hadn't experienced. And if anyone is in my boat that grew up in the Southeast and they're used to the humidity, you have to go experience that, because it's just very different. And maybe you'll be like me and you'll be like, you won't be affected. You won't sweat or anything like that. Whenever we left Las Vegas, we headed to Flagstaff. We got into Arizona, and I think when we first got into Arizona, it was still deserty.
It was.
But as we entered Flagstaff, that was crazy, because it was like, when I pictured Arizona, it was like, desert, cactus, that was it. But Flagstaff was different. Flagstaff was like mountains, and there was one point where Mal and I looked at each other and were like, right now, if you took a picture, no one would know where we were. There's no way that anyone would have guessed Arizona. It almost looked like Montana or something like that. Like, it was completely different. So Flagstaff was really cool. It reminded me a lot of Muncie, Indiana, which is where Chaz lives. It was a very small town centered around a college. And it feels a lot like Muncie. Anyway, then we headed through Phoenix. Phoenix was big, but well designed. Interstate went right through it, which might make traveling hectic, but when you're trying to get through the city, it was pretty nice. Other than that, we didn't really spend a whole lot of time there, so I don't think we can really talk about it. We stopped at the Fallout games, and the people in there were nice, but other than that, I don't really know. Tucson was cool, but I hate the way Tucson was designed. Tucson is on a grid system. Tucson's actually pretty big, but there's no highway in Tucson. Like, if you want to get from point A to point B on Tucson, you have to take their slow as crap 40 miles per hour roads, and you can't get from, the top corner to the other corner in less than like 35 minutes or longer. Like, it's insane. Tucson's also interesting because it's so, what's the word, flat? I mean, it is flat, but I was thinking like in terms of like the height of their buildings.
Oh yeah.
They only have like 2 or 3 story buildings at most.
There's a couple tall ones.
There's like a few banks or something that was a little bit bigger, but other than that, that was it. But Arizona's beautiful. The desert, even though it was incredibly dangerous and borderline frightening, don't touch the Troya. Thanks, Steve. It was still really cool, and it was. I'm really glad that Steve was there to show us that part, because then I got to appreciate the nature beauty aspect of it. Otherwise, it would have just been like, Tucson needs a highway, and that would have been like my impression of Tucson. But it seemed nice. It had like a small town feel. In a way, it felt a little like, I want to say a little like Myrtle Beach, but it was just because it was not super, super huge, but it was big enough where it had a lot of interesting things. But that was cool. Then we went to El Paso. There will be a few times in this video I might speak ill of your town or your state. I apologize. I didn't like El Paso. No offense to anyone that lives in El Paso, but when we first came into El Paso, it was, I don't want to say run down, but it felt a little run down. El Paso was the one with the cool bridges, though.
Yes, they had cool bridges.
They had like painted bridges or something, like they were different colors, and I really liked that. But otherwise, it felt, I don't want to say dirty, but it did. It kind of felt like it was dirty or just old or run down or something. That's the impression I got from El Paso, and it didn't help that we stayed at a Marriott that was really old and kind of decrepit. So
that really didn't help.
That didn't help. Although the food that we had there was really good. We stopped at that rail car place. I don't remember what it's called, but
me neither.
It was like that one car or fast something. Anyway, that was good. And I mean, obviously, we didn't stay long enough in any particular city to form a huge, good opinion of it, but we are basing it off of what we know, so that's what we're going to talk about. The next day was the terrible drive from El Paso to San Antonio. Like I said before, West Texas was fairly boring. Very little places to stop. Like, I swear to God, there was a strip of like 200 to 300 miles with like no exits at all. It was crazy. The only place in between was Fort Stockton.
Yes.
Which
we thought was bigger on the map.
It looked bigger on the map, but like you drove through there and like everything was shut down. Everything was shut down, and I was like, "This is crazy! Like this place is practically a ghost town." And we were hoping to find like a sit-down restaurant, and they were all closed down, or the ones that were open had like 1-star reviews, or
they were like old gas stations turned into restaurants and just didn't look safe.
Yeah, that was a good, there was a lot of places that just didn't feel very safe. So we ended up eating at a Subway, which had a Boy Scout group that was currently in there. It was very loud, but we had fun, and then we headed out of there. The only other place between Fort Stockton and San Antonio was Azona. Was that it?
Just the only one we stopped in.
Was there a few others? I don't know.
There was a couple. We just stopped in Ozona.
Ozona was the biggest one of the ones I think we saw because it was actually on the map when you looked at Google Maps. We stopped there to grab something at Sonic, and that town was like super, super, super tiny. It just very tiny, maybe very poor. I don't know. We stopped there briefly, and then we moved on. There was a car wash going on there, wasn't there? There was like a car wash of like kids washing cars in the parking lot of the Sonic. Also, I don't think we filmed the Sonic, but it was the weirdest one I'd ever seen.
It was a weird Sonic.
It wasn't a drive-in. It was a hollowed out McDonald's. It was
with the play place.
With the play place still intact. It was a McDonald's building, but they'd taken off the McDonald's and slapped on the Sonic logo. And when you walked in, you're like, I'm in a McDonald's. This is a McDonald's. But it was interesting. Also, their menu, were they new or just older? I don't know, because their menu wasn't even like up.
I don't remember.
I feel like it was like printed out on paper and like taped to the wall. I'm not exaggerating. I'm pretty sure that it was like that. Anyway, that was Arizona. Then we left and went to San Antonio. San Antonio was really cool. The problem was San Antonio was like, in my opinion, as the driver, the first really big city we were getting to where it was like hectic. And I guess because it was the first city, I held it against it for that purposes, because I was like, I just want to get to the hotel. Driving, on the interstate and swerving
and frontage roads.
Yeah, it was a headache to drive. It's funny because I said that then, but I did not know the headache that was Houston that was coming up. Houston was far worse, but San Antonio is what we came to first. But it was a nice town. It was really nice, and what we got to see while there, which was not a ton, but we
North Star Mall.
We went to North Star Mall, and then we also went to that game store that was nearby. And, we got to see a little bit of it while driving. It seems like a really nice place.
They had a lot of stuff. They had a Six Flags, a SeaWorld.
Yeah, which, we didn't see any of that, but it's pretty big. It's a pretty big place. The next day... Also, I got to put it in a little shout-out for the owner of the... whatever hotel we stayed in. Was it a Courtyard? I think we stayed in a Courtyard.
Yeah, it was Courtyard.
We stayed in a Marriott Courtyard in San Antonio, next to the North Star Mall. And the guys that owns it, his name was Kirk. Anyway, when we went in, there was like a handwritten note or something from Kirk. Like, he puts in all the rooms. It was like, hey, thank you for staying. And I was like, that's really
Never happened
weird.
To us before.
Like, this guy really cares about his hotel. And then after we left, we got our generic email that's like, thank you for staying. But then we got another email that was from Kirk. It was like, thank you for staying in our hotel. I was like, that's really weird. Like, it was good.
Yeah.
It was really weird. That's never happened. So, Kurt, good job with your Marriott. It was also very, very nice and very, very clean.
And thanks for the fortune cookies.
Yeah, there were fortune cookies. We appreciated that. The next day's drive was really easy, San Antonio to Houston. Like I said before, Houston was much larger than I could ever imagine. I think it was Seth, who lives in Houston, who told us that Houston has, like, more accidents than any other city in the U.S., or per capita, or something like that. Like, there's a lot of accidents. And I can believe that, because not only was Houston crazy to drive in, it was partially crazy to drive in because of the drivers. There was a lot of animosity? There was a lot of aggressive driving in Houston. And
Texas in general.
Texas in general, and I think I even said it on one of the earlier vlogs, like, once again, I hate to feel like I'm singling out anyone, and this is a generalization that does not necessarily apply to you in particular, but from what I saw driving through the great big state of Texas, Texas has, maybe not even necessarily bad, but incredibly aggressive drivers, and bad drivers. There was more than any other place, and I know Texas is big, but I'm taking that into consideration as well. More than any other state, people cutting us off, driving my bumper like so close to my car, so freaking close behind me. We had, on I think 2 occasions, someone flashed their lights at us.
For no reason.
For like no reason.
We were in the right lane, doing everything right.
I was like, why? There's one time where I was in the passing lane.
Oh yeah, but you were passing.
But I was passing, and I was going
above the speed limit?
Far above the speed limit to pass. And there was a big old truck behind me flashing his lights at me, and I'm like, am I not going fast enough for you? This is insane. I'm passing the car. Anyway, so that's just my personal experience with Texas. Maybe it was a freak thing, even though it happened a lot. May not happen the next time we go through Texas. I don't know. But Houston was big. Downtown Houston was really cool, and we had a good meetup there. We had a good meetup in LA as well, don't get me wrong. But it was nice that so many people came out to Houston because we didn't have Anime Expo. You know, there was a lot of people there, and there wasn't an event. People just came downtown, which was really cool. Seth actually lived on the northern part of Houston, and I think I said it in the video, but we were downtown, which was like right in central Houston, 40 minutes drive to get to the north end. So if you were at the north end, wanted to get to the south end, that's like an hour and a half. And that alone is like, that's a big enough reason for me to never live in Houston. That city would just be too big for me. But overall, it was all right. There was a lot of you that were understandably upset that we didn't have a meetup in San Antonio or Austin or Dallas. You have to understand, all those cities are really close to each other, but not close enough, and we couldn't do a meetup in all of them, so I do apologize. We decided on Houston because we were going through it. Admittedly, I guess we could have just as easily done one in San Antonio, but for our particular schedule, staying in Houston to an extra day to see Seth, it worked out really well to just do it in Houston. But apparently Austin and Dallas are also very nice cities, so if we ever go through Texas again, I would like to see them, especially Austin. Because Austin is supposed to be,
the Portland of Texas.
That's what I've been told. It's supposed to be the Portland of Texas, which I think is really interesting. And apparently Dallas is where the Cowboys are. Not this team, like Cowboys.
Isn't the team in Dallas too?
Yeah, but that's not what I'm referring to. I mean people in hats. We did see some people in cowboy hats with boots, but not a whole lot of it. But apparently they live in Dallas. People in Texas. You can confirm or deny this. After that, we went to New Orleans in Louisiana, which I believe I'm saying that correctly. You have to pronounce it New Orleans. Not, as I've been told, Nolans. Because apparently only tourists pronounce it as Nolans, which I'm not...
Like, chew that a little bit.
I'm not entirely convinced of that. I'm pretty sure that there are some incredibly Cajun people that do pronounce it Nolans. But I think you're supposed to say New Orleans. Anyway... I really liked it.
It was pretty.
It was pretty.
The food was really good.
The food was really good. We're like building up all these positives because we're about to hit it with a negative. New Orleans was, without a doubt, the smelliest city I've ever been to in my entire life. We got in late that night. And by the way, the city comes alive at night because we pulled in at like 11 and there was people in the streets with like flashy things and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the crap's going on? But we went to bed as soon as we got in. The next morning, We spent a few hours wandering the streets and eating
And we
breakfast
were just
and
in
lunch.
the French Quarter.
Just in the French
So
Quarter.
it was only the French Quarter we really experienced.
Yeah, so that's our only experience of New Orleans, but it smelled awful almost everywhere
It was like
we went.
raw sewage.
It smelled like a mix between raw sewage and like urine and possibly human feces. It just smelled...
That's sewage.
Yeah. It just smelled really bad. And it was like everywhere we went. It just...
And you're
know.
walking through puddles and you're like,
You can't help but
What's in
wonder,
this
you know,
puddle?
what is this puddle? Is this homeless urine that I'm stepping in? I have no
is
idea.
this drunk person vomit?
Yeah, like that's kind of, and also we wear sandals everywhere we go, so you know, you don't want to splashy because then it's on your foot and it's gross. That being said, New Orleans had amazing food.
The best food I think we had the whole trip was in Louisiana.
Yeah, and actually we didn't hit on it, but the night before we ate at Lafayette. And that Blue Dog Cafe was freaking good.
Really good.
Really good. If you're ever in that part of town, go there because it was well worth it, and they won a bunch of awards for stuff. But New Orleans was cool. It was just one of those cities like New Orleans and Las Vegas both. Las Vegas less so because Las Vegas has shows and gambling and all this stuff, but especially New Orleans, it feels like Myrtle Beach in a way. It's very touristy, incredibly touristy, and they have tourist shops everywhere. And it's just...
I mean, Savannah and Charleston are the same way.
Yeah, but because of that, and because I grew up in a tourist place, I'm not really interested in that. So, like, we spent 4 hours, you know, walking the French Quarter and stuff, and then I was done.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I probably will never come back to New Orleans, because I felt like I've seen it, you know? Mm-hmm. If there's other stuff to do, it's not in the French Quarter, you know? I'm sure there's a lot of other places to eat, which would be good. If we ever go through there, I'll eat there again, yes! But as far as like sightseeing or anything, I probably won't do that. After that, went through Biloxi, which it was interesting because I didn't even know what it was, Biloxi and Gulfport, but it's a huge casino place. It's like a mini Vegas. It was really fun. We did a lot of fun with Derek, and we made back our Vegas money, so I have no complaints there. That was really cool. Camera died. Anyway, Biloxi was interesting because I just didn't know about it, and then it was a casino place, and I was like, that's neat. After Biloxi, nothing really... I mean, it was the first time in Mississippi, which it was pretty standard. We weren't in Mississippi very long. It was the first time in Alabama. Alabama felt like a speed trap, because Alabama had a lot of... I guess it was a lot of road construction, maybe, but when we got into Alabama, it was like 45 miles an hour, and everyone's driving 75, and that bothers me. That really freaks me out because it's one of those situations where you're in the rightmost lane and you're driving slow and you're like, crap, you know, people are like coming up behind you and swerving and everyone is driving 75. But that bothers me because there's been times in Atlanta where it's been a super low speed limit and I've seen people get pulled over, and because all the cop has to say is, well, the speed limit's 45. Yeah, everyone's driving 30 over. You know, what do you do? That bothers me. That freaks me out. So we got through the speed trap that was Alabama, and then we got into Florida, and that's when it was like Cop City. Like as soon as we went over the border into Florida, there were cops everywhere, just everywhere. Like when going into Florida is like a cop speed trap. There wasn't a whole lot of road construction there. It was just like
Lots of cops.
They were out to get you. The most cops that I saw was in Florida, without a doubt. There were just cops everywhere, and we drove through a lot of states. Keep in mind, we didn't see a single cop in California after we left LA to Nevada. We didn't see... I think we saw one cop in Nevada, maybe, and then we started to see a bunch in Arizona. Then we didn't see a single one in New Mexico. We also didn't see a whole lot of it. I think that was where we saw the tumbleweed, so that makes sense. There was nothing in New Mexico. Saw very few in Texas, I think. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of ramped up a little bit from there with it all being all of the cops in Florida. And then, I don't know, there's not a whole lot to talk about in Jacksonville, just for the fact that we've been there before. It was fun seeing Dan. And then we actually briefly considered staying in Savannah, but... I've lived in Savannah so long, and Mal has seen it, so we decided to come straight home. So that was a rundown of our entire trip. This was a very long vlog, but I think we hit on some information that we didn't talk about during the road trip itself that we've talked about, amongst ourselves and, with friends and family that we've, talked with for the trip. But it was fun.
It was very fun.
It was absolutely fun. And for all the people that were like, you're going to hate it, I didn't. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we did very short driving days. I mean, yeah, if you do 12-hour days, of course you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it halfway through the first day. But we tried to keep it like 4 or 5 hours, do lunch in between, and it makes it so much more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we really, really enjoyed this vacation. And we talked about it, and we're probably going to be doing another one because we really enjoyed it. We don't know exactly when, but our next goal, our next road trip would be going north. We live close to 95. We'd be taking 95 up to, I guess, ultimately Maine. It goes all the way to Maine.
I think so.
I think.
But we'd be going to Maine.
We'd be going to Maine. But we'd be going to D.C. I've been to D.C. 3 times, or maybe 4. Mal's never been, and she wants to see it. We've never been to New York City. We'd love to see that. So those are 2 places we'd really like to go. And I've never been to Maine, so I'd like to see Maine. So
we'll skip Boston because we go there enough.
Because we go there every year. So yeah, that's our next thing, and I don't know when that's happening. That
next summer, probably not.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. We'll see what's going on. But that's something I'd like to do in the near future. So that's our plans. People asked us a lot about if we were coming through this place or that place or whatever, and the best answer I have for all of you is maybe. In the future, maybe. And someone asked if we'd consider like a road trip to Canada. Maybe, anything's possible. I'm not writing off anything in particular. We love to travel and we love to see new things, so it could happen. Who knows? We'll see what the future has in store. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Those who are interested in the video game stuff that we picked up, we're going to save that for either tomorrow or a video in the very, very near future. So, and we're going to be gearing up to leave again because we are going to Indiana. I think I mentioned that yesterday at the end of the vlog, but yeah, no stopping. We're traveling.
And then we get back in school.
And then 2 weeks, and then it's like PAX.
Yeah.
And then
your parents go. And
then my parents go on the cruise the end of September. And then I don't know what's going on in October. I think the end of October is when we're doing our charity stream. For those of you who are wondering, we are doing that again. Working on the details of that because I want to do something really cool and neat and interesting and new and not Earthbound. And it might be hard to pull off, but we'll see if we can do it. Yep. Okay, I'm done. This is a long vlog. Thank you for watching. And you like my... And we'll see you guys tomorrow. By this point it's tradition. It's time to wake you up.
Jump!
That was a bad idea.
This...
The mystery mobile.
What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We needed to run back.
You did?
I just sat there. I was like, maybe I can dodge it? And then it, like, swerved. Oh, God, it sent us back to the screen. So this time I'm going to jump over, and then I'm going to turn around and be like, nope. Wait, how do I...